A mother's heartbreak, Jessa Duggar's baby tragedy, and hospital struggle. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. For Duggar family latest news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. A day that should have been joyful. Jessa Duggar had always imagined the birth of her new baby as a moment filled with love, relief, and joy. The nursery was painted soft cream, with tiny wooden toys stacked neatly on the shelf and a hand-stitched quilt folded carefully at the end of the crib. Ben Seawald, her husband, had spent weeks preparing everything so their home would feel warm and ready. But when the contractions began earlier than expected, a cloud of fear entered the Duggar household. What should have been the happiest day of their lives turned into a frantic rush to the hospital. Michelle Duggar, Jessa's mother, held her daughter's hand tightly in the car, whispering prayers. Ben's knuckles turned white as he gripped the steering wheel, and no one in that car could imagine how drastically their lives were about to change. The panic in the delivery room. At first, doctors assured the family that everything looked manageable. But as the hours passed, complications grew. The baby's heartbeat faltered, monitors beeped urgently, and the medical staff rushed in and out of the room. Ben tried to stay strong for Jessa, but when he saw her pale face and trembling lips, he broke down in silent tears. "Stay with me, Jess. Please, you and the baby. We need you both." Michelle stood in the corner, her heart aching. As a mother of many, she had witnessed countless births, but watching her daughter fight for life was unbearable. Jim Bob arrived, holding back sobs, his voice low. "We have to trust God. That's all we can do now." Hours dragged on like years. Finally, the doctor entered with a heavy look. Words no parent ever wants to hear slipped from his lips. "We did everything we could. The baby didn't make it." The crushing silence. The hospital room, once filled with urgent sounds, fell into silence. Jessa clutched the empty blanket meant for her newborn and cried out from a place deeper than words. The cries were raw, heartbreaking, echoing down the sterile hallways. Ben collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. He had dreamed of holding his child, teaching them to walk, reading bedtime stories. Now those dreams shattered into dust. Michelle knelt beside Jessa's bed, stroking her hair like she had when Jessa was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. "You're not alone, sweetheart," she whispered, though her own tears wouldn't stop. News spreads through the family. Back home, the Duggar household was filled with whispers and phone calls. Sisters gathered together, their children unaware of the heaviness in the air. Joanna cried openly, while Jana tried to stay composed, managing the younger siblings' questions. "Where's the baby?" little voices asked. No one knew how to answer. Family, friends, fans, and critics alike soon learned the devastating news. Social media flooded with messages of condolences, prayers, and sorrow. But mixed in were cruel comments from strangers who never truly understood the pain the family endured. Jessa's struggle in the hospital. While her baby's body was prepared for a quiet farewell, Jessa's own health worsened. The physical toll of childbirth complications forced doctors to keep her hospitalized. Her body was weak, her heart even weaker. Ben sat beside her bed, holding her hand night after night. He whispered words of encouragement, Bible verses, and promises that one day they would find strength again. But Jessa often lay silent, staring at the ceiling, trapped between grief and exhaustion. "Why? Ben, why us? Why this baby?" she whispered one night. Ben didn't have an answer. He only had tears, memories that cut like glass. The couple had picked a name. They had folded baby clothes, laughed while assembling a crib, and imagined their children playing together. Now, every item in that nursery was a reminder of what they lost. Michelle helped pack away some of the items, but Jessa begged to keep the quilt, the one she had sewn with her own hands. "It's all I have left," she whispered. Ben couldn't bring himself to enter the nursery. He stood at the doorway staring at the empty crib, feeling as though a piece of his soul had been ripped out. Faith tested. The Duggar family had always leaned heavily on their faith. But in moments like this, even the strongest believers wrestle with doubt. Jim Bob gathered the family for prayer, reminding them of God's mysterious ways. But behind closed doors, he wept like any father would for his child's suffering. Jessa struggled with her prayers. She wanted to believe that her baby was safe in heaven, but the pain of not holding that tiny body was almost unbearable. God feels so far away, she admitted to her sister. Jill held her and whispered, "That's okay. Sometimes all we can do is cry, and God listens even then." A family in mourning. The Duggar home became unusually quiet. The laughter of children felt muted, the usual energy replaced with hushed tones and heavy sighs. Ben withdrew into himself, feeling guilt he couldn't explain. "I should have protected them," he whispered one night. Michelle reminded him, "This wasn't your fault, Ben. You loved them. That's all anyone could do." Jessa, still recovering physically, leaned on her mother and sisters. Even with support, she often found herself staring out the hospital window, wondering what her baby's first smile would have looked like. Farewell ceremony. The family decided on a small, private memorial for the baby. A white casket no larger than a bassinet was carried by Ben, his hands trembling. Jessa clung to his arm, barely able to stand. Soft hymns played. Tears flowed. Each family member placed a single white rose on the casket. Michelle, her voice breaking, whispered, "You are loved from the very beginning." For Ben and Jessa, that tiny farewell was both closure and a wound that would never fully heal. Moving forward, step by step, weeks later, Jessa was finally discharged from the hospital. Her body had healed enough to return home, but her heart remained shattered. She and Ben promised each other they would take it one day at a time. Some mornings, Jessa couldn't get out of bed. Some nights, Ben couldn't stop crying. But slowly, through prayer, counseling, and the love of family, they began to breathe again. The Duggar family, once known only for their large numbers and public image, showed the world their rawest, most human side: grief, heartbreak, and the fragile beauty of holding on, reflection, and hope. Jessa began journaling, writing letters to the baby she never got to raise. "You will always be part of me," she wrote. "Your name may never be called in our home, but it is written in my heart forever." Ben started working on a small wooden box, carving it carefully in his workshop. Inside, they placed the hospital bracelet, a photo of the baby's tiny hand, and the quilt Jessa had made. It became their memory box, a sacred place of remembrance. Though the pain never disappeared, they found moments of light. Their other children became their reason to smile again. Each hug, each "I love you," Mommy reminded Jessa that life still held purpose. Closing thoughts. Life had changed forever. No one forgets the loss of a child. The Duggar family learned that even in their world of cameras, headlines, and public attention, grief is deeply personal. For Jessa, the scars, both visible and invisible, remained. For Ben, the silence of the nursery would always echo. But together, they chose to honor their baby, not through sorrow alone. Heartbreaking story: Jim Bob Duggar's most devastating moment. A shock no one saw coming. Viewers, today's story is not just about another headline. It is about a tragedy so unexpected, so overwhelming, that it has shaken the very foundation of the Duggar family. Jim Bob Duggar, the man who once stood as the strong pillar of faith and guidance for his 19 children, has found himself facing the darkest, most heartbreaking moment of his life. This isn't about fame, cameras, or reality TV anymore. This is about a man, a father, and a husband who has been brought to his knees by unimaginable pain. A tragedy that has left Michelle Duggar in tears, the children in shock, and fans around the world sending prayers, trying to make sense of what has just happened. The day that changed everything. It all began on what seemed like an ordinary day in the Duggar household. Jim Bob woke up early, as he often did, tending to the responsibilities that came with being the head of such a large family. But what none of them knew was that this day would turn into the most sorrowful chapter of their lives. The Duggar family has always lived with a spotlight. Every milestone, every decision, every trial, all magnified under the lens of public opinion. Yet nothing could have prepared them, or their supporters, for this sudden blow. Tragedy arrived without warning, striking like a storm that leaves no time to seek shelter. Michelle Duggar, usually the calm and resilient presence beside Jim Bob, was left sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time, the woman who had carried so much with grace seemed completely broken. Jim Bob's collapse under the weight of pain. When news of the tragedy hit, Jim Bob Duggar's world shattered instantly. Those who know him say they have never seen him this way before. The man who has carried the burdens of raising 19 children, managing controversies, and protecting his family from outside criticism, collapsed under the sheer weight of grief. Eyewitnesses close to the family described the heartbreaking scene. Jim Bob, unable to hold himself up, sinking to the floor, his face buried in his hands. His sobs echoed through the home as the children looked on in shock, unsure how to comfort their father. It was not just a personal breakdown. It was the image of a man who had spent his entire life projecting strength, finally crumbling in front of those he loved most. Michelle Duggar's endless tears. Michelle Duggar, known for her soft voice and gentle heart, has been described as crying endlessly since the tragedy. She hasn't stopped, one insider shared. She cries when she wakes up, she cries when she goes to bed, and in between, she is trying to comfort her children while being completely broken herself. Her cries are not just for the loss itself, but for her husband, who she now sees at his most fragile state. For decades, Michelle has leaned on Jim Bob's leadership, but now she must try to be strong for him even as her own heart shatters. The children's shock and silence. For the Duggar children, who have grown up under the public eye, life has always been about faith, unity, and resilience. But this tragedy has left many of them speechless. Some have retreated into silence, unable to process the pain. Others have spoken about how surreal it feels, as if their entire world has turned upside down overnight. Even the older married children, who have families of their own, are shaken to their core. They are not just worried about the loss, but about the emotional collapse of their parents. Watching Jim Bob in such despair has been especially difficult, because for them, their father has always been the one who knew what to do. Fans react with heartbreak. When the news broke, Duggar fans across the world flooded social media with messages of love, prayers, and support. Many of them have followed the family since the early days of 19 kids and counting, celebrating their joys and watching them overcome challenges. Now, the same fans are left heartbroken, struggling to accept that the family they admired is facing such unimaginable grief. Some have shared their own stories of loss, offering comfort to the Duggars through messages that say you are not alone in this. Others express shock, saying they never thought they would see Jim Bob Duggar, the unshakable father figure, reduced to such visible sorrow, the weight of faith tested. For years, Jim Bob and Michelle have built their lives on a foundation of faith, teaching their children that God's plan is always greater than human understanding. But now, even their faith is being tested like never before. Those close to the family reveal that Jim Bob has spent hours in prayer, often weeping as he asks for strength to endure. Michelle, too, has leaned heavily on scripture, reading verses aloud through her tears in an effort to find peace. Still, the weight of grief makes every prayer feel heavier, every word of comfort harder to believe. This tragedy has forced the family to confront the reality that even the strongest faith can be shaken when loss strikes so deeply, a family forever changed. This moment will forever mark a turning point in the Duggar family's history. It is not just another chapter. It is the chapter that changes everything. For Jim Bob, the image of being the unbreakable father has been replaced by the raw, vulnerable truth that even the strongest can crumble. For Michelle, the role of gentle supporter has turned into that of a grieving mother whose tears will not stop. And for the children, the tragedy will remain a memory that defines their understanding of life, loss, and resilience. And no matter what happens moving forward, the Duggar family will never be the same again. Supporters gather in prayer. In the days following the tragedy, communities of faith, friends, and supporters have gathered around the Duggars. Prayer chains have been formed, church congregations have lifted the family up in their services, and countless individuals have sent letters and words of encouragement. The outpouring of love has been overwhelming, but it cannot erase the deep wound that the family is carrying. Jim Bob, though grateful, admits through close friends that it feels like nothing can fill the void that has been created. The emotional toll on Jim Bob As time passes, it has become clear that Jim Bob is entering one of the most emotional battles of his life. His health, both physical and mental, has been impacted by the stress and grief. Loved ones worry about how much more he can handle. He has admitted to friends that he feels like he is carrying an unbearable burden. Yet at the same time, he knows he must somehow rise again for Michelle, for his children, and for the legacy of faith that he has always tried to protect. The beginning of a painful journey. While this tragedy has brought unimaginable heartbreak, it has also marked the beginning of a painful journey, one that Jim Bob and his family must now walk. It will not be easy. The days ahead will be filled with tears, questions, and the constant ache of absence. But there is also hope. Hope that time will slowly bring healing, that faith will eventually bring peace, and that love will carry them through. For Jim Bob Duggar, this may very well be the most emotional chapter of his life, but it is also a chance to show that even in the darkest moments, resilience can emerge, a family in need of prayers. The Duggar family story has always been one of extraordinary highs and devastating lows. But this tragedy stands apart as one of the most heartbreaking moments. Jinger Duggar shockingly leaves Jeremy Vuolo. Duggar family in tears, divorce revealed. The Duggar family had long been accustomed to public scrutiny. With years in the spotlight and countless headlines, they thought they had weathered almost every storm imaginable. But nothing could have prepared them for the shocking announcement that Jinger Duggar, once considered one of the strongest anchors of stability in the family, had walked away from her husband Jeremy Vuolo. The news spread like wildfire. It wasn't a whisper, nor a slow trickle of rumors. It was everywhere in an instant. Social media exploded with hashtags like #JingerandJeremy, #DuggarDivorce, and even the heartbreaking #PrayForTheDuggars. Fans were in disbelief. Critics dissected every detail, and inside the Duggar home, tears fell freely as the weight of Jinger's choice became undeniable. The cracks began to show. From the outside, Jinger and Jeremy had always seemed picture-perfect. Their love story was the stuff of modern Duggar legend. A pastor and a sweet daughter from one of America's most watched families. What could possibly go wrong? They moved from Arkansas to Texas and later to California, where Jeremy pursued ministry and Jinger embraced city life. But behind the filtered Instagram posts and carefully worded interviews, cracks had begun to form. Jeremy's passion for ministry often consumed his time. He was driven, focused, and ambitious. He had dreams of expanding his influence beyond the pulpit, writing books, building podcasts, becoming a household name in evangelical circles. Jinger supported him, but as she tried to balance her own role as wife, mother, and individual, she often felt invisible in the shadows of his growing spotlight. Small disagreements grew into bigger ones. Jinger's voice, once cheerful and full of laughter, turned softer and quieter. Nights that had once been filled with shared prayers and whispered dreams were now marked by cold silences, the breaking point. It was one evening in Los Angeles that the final straw came. Jeremy had just returned from a late meeting, his phone buzzing nonstop with ministry updates. Jinger had been waiting for him, her hands trembling as she held a letter she had written earlier that day. The house was quiet, their children asleep, but her heart pounded louder than any noise. "Jeremy," she said, her voice breaking. He glanced up distractedly, loosening his tie. "What is it, Jinger? Can it wait? I've had a long day." Her tears spilled over. "That's just it. It always has to wait. I've been waiting for years, Jeremy. Waiting for you to see me, to hear me, to understand that I'm drowning." He froze, his brows furrowing. "What are you saying?" Her hands shook as she placed the letter on the table. "I can't keep living like this. I love you, but love isn't enough when I feel like a stranger in my own marriage. I'm leaving." The words hung heavy in the air, more crushing than any silence that had come before. Shockwaves through the Duggar home the very next day. Jinger called her parents. Michelle answered first, her familiar warm tone quickly faltering when she heard her daughter's sobs. Jim Bob soon joined, and together they listened in stunned disbelief as Jinger confessed the truth. "Mom, Dad, I've left Jeremy." Michelle's hand flew to her mouth. Jim Bob's voice broke. Something rarely heard from the patriarch of the Duggar clan, Jessa. Sweetheart, are you sure about this? Marriage is sacred. We've always taught you. I know what you've taught me, Jessa whispered. But I also know what I've lived. I can't keep sacrificing myself to keep up appearances. This isn't about disobedience or rebellion. It's about survival. Back in Arkansas, the Duggar household was shaken to its core. Siblings gathered, whispering, crying, and praying. Some were sympathetic, others struggled to understand. Joy and Jana held each other, tears streaming down their faces as they processed the reality that their sister's marriage, something they had admired, was crumbling. Jeremy's silence. As the headline spread, one voice remained notably absent, Jeremy's. While Jessa issued a brief statement confirming the separation, Jeremy refused to comment publicly. Duggar News star Jessa Duggar reacts to Aaron Bates' sepsis battle, calls it an absolute miracle. Duggar News fame Jessa Duggar has opened up about Aaron Bates' sepsis battle and recovery. Aaron recently gave birth to her 7th child, and soon after giving birth, she went into septic shock. The mother of 7 also suffered a severe and lengthy seizure. A few days later, her husband informed everyone that she is out of danger and recovering. Aaron Bates was recently discharged from the hospital and took to Instagram to share the good news. While she thanked everyone for praying for her, she also revealed that she has lost function in her right leg. Now, Jessa Duggar has shared an update about her friend's recovery. Keep reading to know what she has shared. Duggar News. Duggar family show support to Aaron. Aaron Bates is still fighting to get better. While she is bravely standing against her health problems, the Duggar family has shown their support to the 34-year-old star. Her husband was continuously sharing updates about her health on his Instagram handle. People across the world put down all their love and support for Aaron in the comment section. Duggar News fame Jessa Duggar wrote down, Chad, "We are upholding you in all prayer daily." Whereas her husband, Jeremy Vuolo, also left a comment in which he added that everyone is praying for Aaron. Furthermore, Jill Duggar, Jessa Duggar, and Jana Duggar also said that they are praying for Aaron and her family. Later, when Chad updated everyone that his wife's condition is stable, Jessa replied, "Praise the Lord." Aaron's sister, Katie Bates, also commented that everyone is thankful for the answered prayers. Duggar News. Jessa Duggar shares an update on Aaron's recovery. Aaron Bates, who is battling with sepsis for the last few weeks, has been discharged and is finally home. But she also shared that she has lost function in her right leg. Back in August, she gave birth to her 7th child, Henry. Because of her long and complicated labor, she got a UTI infection. This also led her into septic shock. Later, it was revealed by her husband, Chad, that she also suffered a severe seizure. However, a few days ago, the mother of 7 took to Instagram and posted a bittersweet update. She revealed that she is finally going home. But unfortunately, she has also lost function in her right leg. Aaron wrote, "We don't have all the answers yet, and I still don't have function in my right leg." She further added, "But we are choosing to count every blessing, especially the gist of being together again." Furthermore, Aaron also thanked everyone for praying for her and wrote that it means the world to them. Now, the Duggar News star and her friend, Jessa Duggar, have spoken about the situation and offered an update about her health. The 31-year-old star said, "I think Aaron seems to be doing a little bit better." She discussed it with her husband, Jeremy Vuolo, on the September 17th episode of their eponymous podcast. Jessa further added, "I think that it'll be a long road, but as we follow along with all their posts, it's encouraging to see any little glimmer of hope." Additionally, she said that everyone is holding on to hope now as Aaron has started to recover. And so that's just an absolute miracle and encouraging to see, Jessa admitted. Keep coming back to TV season and spoilers for more Duggar updates.